Hey, okay, so for my 373 class, this is Shakespeare, and we are talking about Romeo and Juliet. Um, so, yeah, I don't know how I kind of did an introduction talking about poetry and how poetry works last time, because it's a really important thing. As a person who studies poetry, Romeo and Juliet is sort of the most poetic of the. It's like a poem. It's if you think about poetry as being over here and plays as being over here, some of Shakespeare's plays are more like other people's plays. Um, they're more like people yelling at each other. They're like prose. They're just like regular writing. But some of Shakespeare's plays are much more like poetry. Than like Love's Labour's Lost is more like a poem. Much Ado About Nothing is closer to a sort of more modern play in terms of it's less like poetry. Much Ado About Nothing I love it. It's a great play. Less like poetry. Romeo and Juliet, a lot like poetry. Love's Labour's Lost, a lot like poetry. Richard II, a lot like poetry. Um, Cymbeline, less like poetry. It's a terrible play. Don't read that play. It's Shakespeare's worst play. I hate it. I want to kind of continue thinking about this kind of thing and also about the relationship between tragedy and doom that I was mentioning last time. Um, what I want to do to get into that, I thought we would look at page 6, the speech about Queen Mab. And I've already been over the opening lines of it with you guys here. I dreamt a dream tonight, and so did I. But what was yours? The dreamers often lie in bed asleep while they do dream things true. Oh, then I see Queen Mab has been with you. Um, so Romeo wants to talk about his dreams. I dreamt a dream last night. And Mercutio says, "Oh yeah, me too." And Romeo says, "Well, what was yours?" Because he just got cut off, right? You should say, his friend was like, "Oh yeah, me too. Let's talk about my dream instead." And he says, "What was yours?" Mercutio says, "Dreamers often lie," meaning people who tell you they had a dream last night are lying. For Romeo, these dreams are like prophecies that tell the truth, or they're dreams that they're true to the emotions of the heart. That when you dream about someone you love, it means you'll marry them or whatever. For Mercutio, these dreams are just lies. They're not some higher emotional truth or whatever. They're garbage. They're junk. Um, so, and one of Deborah noticed. No, wait. Yeah, that's right. Deborah noticed that there's a wonderful rhythm to this. I dreamt a dream tonight, and so did I. Well, what was yours? The dreamers often lie in bed asleep while they do dream things true. Oh, then I see Queen Mab has been with you. You notice how these are, again, you can see it's poetry, right? Actually, right on the same page, it's nice. You can look over here for the opposite. See, these don't rhyme, but they do have a certain number of syllables per line, and I can tell you the syllables generally follow a pattern of alone, 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 alone. There's some variation on that. But over here, this is not a poem. See how the lines just go all the way to the end and then keep going here, and it's lowercase here, whereas over here it's always uppercase at the start of the lines, because this is really just prose. If this, let's say I didn't have this column, let's say I just had this right on the page, it would just go down the middle of the page. But this, if I was printing this, it would go all the way across like this. However, it fits whatever paper you give it. Whereas this is supposed to be 10 syllables per line, no matter what size paper. Um, and then you can see so because the servingmen talk in regular prose, and these guys talk in poetry. What's interesting about the rhythm of this, I dreamt a dream tonight. Well, so did I. But what was yours? Dreamers often lie in bed asleep while they do dream things true. Oh, then I see Queen Mab has been with you. And you can see true you. This is like it's got he rhyme. They're rhyming together. What's interesting about these lines here, I dreamt a dream tonight, and so did I, is remember I said that there's 10 syllables per line, and there's a rhythm to it. Um, um, let's do this. Oh, then I see Queen Mab hath been with you. Oh, then I see Queen Mab hath been with you. Oh, then I see Queen Mab hath been with you. Alone, 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 alone. Oh, then I see Queen Mab hath been with you. It has a rhythm to it. What's interesting about the earlier lines is that they're short. I dreamt a dream tonight, and so did I. Those don't seem like they have the right number of syllables, right? I dreamt a dream tonight. There should be more syllables in that line. The reason the rhythm is interesting is because in Mercutio's speech here, he gives each line has 10 syllables. Oh, then I see Queen Mab hath been with you. But up here, these are short. Why are they short? They're not short lines, they're half lines. And what's happening is that Romeo is saying part of, if you think about a line of poetry in Shakespeare as having 10 syllables that has a rhythm of alone, 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 Romeo does half a line. I dreamt a dream tonight. What does Mercutio say? And so did I. Well, what was yours that dreamers often lie? In bed asleep while they do dream things true. You see it? What's fascinating about the exchange, what makes the rhythm interesting, what makes it a neat thing, is that you know how you think about people who are intimately connected. You say, I mean, we finish each other's sentences. Um, Here, Romeo and Mercutio are finishing each other's lines of iambic pentameter poetry. If they're characters who speak, and Shakespeare gives them a kind of poetry to speak. But when Romeo, but they can share the same line. This is what's really interesting about it, is that Romeo will say, and this is not just in this play, it's in all Shakespeare plays, but it's especially neat here because the rhyme makes it sound like Mercutio and Romeo are composing a poem together. I dreamt a dream tonight. Well, so did I. Well, what was yours? That dreamers often lie. See, they're helping each other fill out a 10-syllable line in the poem. It's like they're writing a poem together. So, and again, they're not really doing this, right? Because characters in Shakespeare plays talk like poetry all the time, and nobody ever goes, "Oh shit, dude, did you notice you have a rhythm to your speech?" Nobody ever says that, because it's like a metaphor or a symbol for something. It's the rhythms of the lines aren't for the characters; they're for the audience. We notice. I, sitting in my chair, will notice the rhythm of the poetry, but the characters, they're just talking. Um, it's the rhythm of it and the no, like when a character rhymes something, no one is ever like, "Oh shit, dude, did you notice everything you said rhymed?" Nobody says that in Shakespeare plays, because that kind of rhythm and rhyme is for me in the audience. But what's really neat for me in the audience to experience is the way that Mercutio and Romeo finish each other's lines of poetry, and I'm going to do it again. Um, I dreamt a dream tonight. Well, he's only got 3 beats. He needs 5. And so Mercutio cuts him off and says, "Well, so did I. Well, so did I. Well, what was yours? It's only got 2. Needs 3 more." Mercutio says, "That dreamers often lie." 5 heavy beats, or 10 syllables, but 5 heavy beats. Alone, 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 alone. I dreamt a dream tonight. Well, so did I. Well, what was yours? That dreamers often lie. In bed asleep while they do dream things true. It's a full line ending with the word true, and the next line will end with a rhyme. Oh, then I see Queen Mab hath been with you. So they're composing poetry together. They can't hear it, but we can. And it suggests the way in which the characters are intimately connected. This is going to become real important in this play because when Romeo meets Juliet, the way they talk to each other is going to create poetry. And this is only the beginning. But before we get to that, this is on the way, before they get to the party. Romeo hasn't even met Juliet at this point. And before they get that far, um, um, Mercutio gives this massive speech. Now, I am not going to analyze this full speech. It's gigantic. But the point of it is Mercutio just goes nuts. He loses his mind. In the movie, he's on drugs and he starts ranting and raving and nobody can follow him. It's a very hard speech to follow. But Queen Mab is like the queen of the fairies. She's like a fairy creature. And he's thinking if human beings if human beings dream true things, um, then maybe it's messages sent by magical creatures. And Mercutio has a massive speech about these magical creatures. Oh, then I see Queen Mab hath been with you. She is the fairies' midwife, and she comes in shape no bigger than an agate stone on the forefinger of an alderman. Right, the fairies are little tiny, like the stones in a ring. Drawn with a team of little atomi over men's noses as they lie asleep. Her wagon spokes, made of long spinner's legs, cover the cover of the wings of grasshoppers, her traces of the smallest spider web, her collars of the moonshine's watery beams, her whip a cricket's bone, the lash of film, her wagoner a small gray-coated net, not half so big, as a round little worm pricked from the lazy finger of a maid. So he's imagining her. And what does he imagine about the fairies? That they're very, very tiny. It's a perfectly nice thing to say, oh, if you had a true dream, maybe it came from the fairy people. They're very small. They're like little stones on rings, and they have little grasshopper wings or their houses. And he's just imagining these tiny little creatures. But what's going to happen to Mercutio is that once he starts imagining, he can't stop. You may recall that. Macbeth also, when he starts imagining, can't stop because there's a fine line between poetic imagination and mental illness. Next video!